What's up, brawlers? Today we're going to be going over a showcase of my wizard in Diablo Immortal. I will be showcasing both my PvE as well as my PvP builds because both are actually quite different and in the way I use them. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So starting off with PvE, I have to say hands down, you're always going to want to take the electric bolt as your basic attack over the arcane bolt, because electric bolt in PvE is going to let you hit multiple targets, and this being the type of game it is, you will always be fighting most of the time more than one enemy at once. So electric bolt is definitely the ability you want to take as your basic. The second ability I actually prefer the most is probably going to be the Frozen Orb version of Scorch. I really like this ability, mainly for it not having the continual damage that synergizes with the Grace of Flagellant set, but it also has a very strong chill effect. And chill, if you do not know, slows your enemies down not only by movement speed, but their actions as well. And this is a killer when you're fighting large mobs and you're trying to kite, because as a wizard, you're going to be constantly kiting. You have to keep moving as a wizard. So having this chill effect on one of your basic skills is a great way to help you kite and keep moving while maintaining a large amount of damage on your enemies. The second skill I really like on my build is actually going to be Meteor. What I took was the Meteor Shower version of Meteor. I liked it more because not only over time it dealt more damage than just the regular version of Meteor, but it had a wider radius as well. And then taking the Meteor radius on top of that for the increase of radius to it, plus the damage, it makes it a very powerful skill, and it is probably my main source of killing power against mobs. The third skill I like to take is going to be Hungering Wind, or the legendary version of Arcane Wind. What this skill does is it allows you to throw down a tornado that not only does continuous damage, but it will follow your enemies along the path that they choose. So whether they keep moving, this is great skill for both PvE and PvP, because as I already mentioned, kiting is something you're going to be doing constantly. So not only are you moving, but your enemies, whether they're in natural NPC enemies or actually other players in battlegrounds, they're always going to be moving. So this is a very, very strong skill just because it always follows its target. So my fourth skill is actually a constant toss-up for me. I often go towards playing as Ice Shield. I really like Ice Shield because it gives me that HP whenever, in the form of a shield whenever I need it. So if my healing potion is on cooldown, I can just pop that shield, and it lasts long enough usually that I can either get away from whatever is trying to kill me, or it gives me enough time to get my health back up, or etc., etc. This is both really useful for me in PvE as well as in PvP. I use it quite a bit, to be honest. I, however, I really don't like any of the legends for it. I feel like the shield itself is just good as a personal buff. The one that gives it to your allies as well, I think, isn't strong enough, because literally it'll take one hit for your ally, whereas you'll survive 4 or 5 hits from the same target. So I don't really feel like it's useful taking the legendary for it. There is a Blizzard Storm version of it that is extremely strong if you're playing a tankier version of a mage or the wizard. But other than that, I really can't recommend any personal builds for Ice Shield. The other skill I find myself using quite often if I'm not running the Ice Shield is actually Lightning Nova. I really like Lightning Nova when I'm doing solo farming in larger areas, because as long as I take the legendary that gives me that speed boost increase, I can literally chain endless massacres because the radius on it is so large, and all you're really trying to do is maintain hit combos. So Lightning Nova is really, really strong for continuing massacres because, like I said, the radius of it is so long, and it's literally spreading out from your character and coming back in. So you have a minimal chance at hitting the same target twice, which is going to reset that chain link on your massacre and give you a longer chance of getting from that mob to the next mob or whatever. And you can also hit off screen with it if you're playing it fast enough. So with the speed boost the legendary gives you, this is an amazing skill for any kind of overworld farming. I really don't recommend using it elsewhere. It's somewhat strong in PvP, but there's just not enough damage from it alone unless you're able to use a teleportation combo and link it so where all those orbs hit the same target. If you're able to learn that ability and use it effectively, Lightning Nova is ridiculously strong. But outside of that combo, I feel like it's just more, like I said, for that overworld farming. The skill I probably take as my fourth is actually the one you see on screen now, which is Black Hole. I'm really not a big fan of Black Hole, but I know it's also a very strong skill. The place I probably use it the most is in Challenge Rifts. I find it to be very, very strong later on in Challenge Rifts once you start pushing beyond what your CR limit is and you have, those high difficulty rifts you're doing. Black Hole is pretty strong because it not only gives you another form of CC, but it also has some pretty decent damage and grouping ability, which makes it ridiculously good in rifts where you're trying to be fast. So you're trying to kill off groups as fast as you can. Black Hole allows you to do this because it'll make your targeting area smaller and therefore allows you to hit more targets with just those skills that you're using, such as Meteor Shower or the regular version of Meteor or Scorch. It solidifies it so much and it synergizes so well with no matter what build you're using, in my opinion. So going into my PvP build now, one of the biggest things I think that every wizard in Battlegrounds or Vault or the Rite of Exile, whatever PvP event you are actually doing, it is highly recommended that you take Arcane Bolt over the Lightning Bolt for your auto attack. Arcane Bolt is a single target damage and therefore it has higher numbers and just better damage consistency overall than what Lightning Bolt has in these type of scenarios. For my first skill, as you can see, I'm actually using the Frozen Beam version of Ice Beam. I believe it's called Frozen. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But what it does is it's a shorter, instantaneous burst instead of the continuous beam of ice and everything. But it'll actually freeze your enemy on impact. It does take a little bit of skill to learn how to aim it consistently, which the delay's only like a second, maybe a second and a half, so it's really not too hard to learn either. But it's definitely a powerhouse kind of move for a single target hit, and it also has piercing, so it can hit targets behind the target you're aiming at. So this is an incredible ability. It has great damage as well as great CC, and I highly recommend it for any PvP build. So my next build is actually going to be the normal version of Meteor. I choose this one because it does have a stun on it, and it does give you a little bit of CC control with forcing certain pathing if you use it correctly. One of the things I like also about it the most is that it combines so well with that frozen beam. Frozen beam freezing, you can hit one or two auto attacks, then drop meteor as well, and the CC from that freeze comboed into a stun are so long that you can either straight out kill your enemy or just drop them halfway down or below before they're even able to take a hit on you. This is an amazing combo and I enjoy it so much. I cannot recommend it any more than I already am. Like, it is so good. I definitely recommend you try it out if you haven't so far. The third ability I really like, again, is going to be the Hungering Wind version of Arcane Wind. I really like this, as I said earlier, because it follows your target as well as doing that continual damage. I like this build mostly because of just the synergy and the CC ability I can drop just across the ground. Like, I can literally cut off an entire lane by myself if I really wanted to, just by using Meteor for the burn circle on the ground. Plus, then I can drop Arcane on top of that, and it's going to make an even wider radius because of that synergy for the 50% more damage. In case you didn't know, that Arcane plus any sort of burn damage has. Arcane Wind is just a must have, I feel like, also on any kind of build. And so I like to actually take the offhand orb for the additional win just because it is so strong. This is definitely a very solid pick and option for any kind of build. So if you haven't played around with Hungry and Wind, it is definitely a skill you should look into. Lastly, I want to talk about ice armor, which I've already mentioned before, and how it's temporary HP whenever you really need it. It's quite good also in PvE. Do not sleep on it. It has been a game changer for me since I started using it, and I feel like it is definitely a skill quite overlooked for teleport. But since I've already talked about Ice Shield and how much I personally like Ice Shield, I want to talk a little bit more about teleport itself. For teleport, as you know, there is the Mirage version that you get from your helmet, where whenever you teleport, you leave a Mirage behind. Great skill because that does help you with confusing your enemies as well as other things, especially if you pair it with something such as a higher level Echoing Shade, which is a legendary gem that creates clones of yourself. You can effectively have up to 3 copies of yourself on the board if you were to have a maxed out Echoing Shade. So that adds so much confusion into the game that it is quite ridiculous. Lastly, and very quickly, I just want to go over what set recommendations I recommend, and that is definitely going to be Grace of the Fledgling as the overall best set any mage or wizard can run, as well as the Montbox set. I personally have found favor for a 2-2 set since I don't have full access to a 4-piece set. I do plan on eventually trying to go to a 4-piece of the Grace of Flagellant set when and running a 2-piece of the Monty set afterwards. This is just something personal for me, but as I said, I do feel like Grace is definitely the must have for any wizard player. It is just that strong because of the continual damage, the ground damage, etc., that set is based on. That is literally all that the wizard does. Like, I feel like that set's pretty much made for them. I do like the Mont set as well because of the extra damage, or the extra shield. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say extra damage. But the extra shield on a squishier character is quite helpful. It has been one of the better things I chose to do when I went from going full 4-4 Grace over to a 2-2 Grace and 2-2 Monk set. I have had a better time playing. I enjoy my playtime a little more because I'm not constantly dying. That shield, when it procs, it seems to be one of the best times, or it's quite useful to have that shield. So I definitely recommend going 2 Grace as well as the 2 Mont set. So I really don't have any recommendations for legendary gems other than Blood Soaked Jade if you can get a hold of it. It's really strong. I do like Howler's Call, um, because it hits as well really strong. Another one I think that is kind of slept on for a wizard is actually Swenson's Haunting. Since Swenson's has to activate on a kill, you're already doing quite a bit of AoE damage, so your chances of getting one of those kills out of a mob is already quite high compared to most of the other classes. So Swenson's, while I wouldn't really recommend it for most other classes, I definitely feel it is very viable for a wizard. So if you do come across a Swinson's, I do recommend using it, as well as Blood Soaked Jade just for the overall damage it gives. Another is going to be Seeping Bile. This is one I really wish I had because Seeping Bile in both PvE and PvP, again, it runs off of your character getting a kill to activate its second ability, but regardless, it will always activate on a 4% chance. And then if it does kill, it can spread to other enemies nearby. So again, for the same reason that you're an AoE, damage dealer, your chances of killing enemies are quite significantly higher, in my opinion, versus other classes to pretty much be able to guarantee a kill at any given time if you're playing well. So Swenson's to me is definitely something you should be looking out for and could quite use. For the Paragon, I definitely would say if you're more into PvE, then go Vanquisher, of course. And if you're more into PvP, go Gladiators. I'm personally on a Gladiators build right now, and I highly recommend it if you are on a PvP player. I personally went the bottom route with Trapper, and I really do like Trapper. I feel like it gives me extra damage ability and more CC, especially when I really need it, being a squishier character. You'll be below that HP threshold that is needed to activate Trapper quite often. So to me, it was like it just fell in line with a ranged character. So I chose it over the other build. Once I got the cheat death and everything, as well as Trapper, I started going over into looking at other things and just aiming for damage. Like I believe I went to Treasure Hunter and bought the damage there. Then I went over to Vanquisher and started working on that skill tree. Because eventually I would like to have Vanquisher as well as Gladiator, being able to just switch between. But right now I'm more so a Gladiator build versus Vanquisher because of my Paragon level. But again, like I said, it really depends on your playstyle. If you're more into PvE, definitely go with Vanquisher. But if you're more into PvP, definitely try out the Trapper build for Gladiator. Alright, so that's going to be all for this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, especially if you stayed around this far. I do appreciate it, and I really enjoy making these videos. I will be trying to put out better content as well as more content for my channel, as well as doing something unique for my channel. For those of you who don't know me, I do like to write. I like to play a lot of games. So what I plan on doing is just putting out a lot of free-form short stories and just stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, definitely make sure you're subscribed to the channel and go ahead and give this channel a like, or this video a like, and help me get it out there because it would help me a lot and I would appreciate it so much because it just encourages me, to continue doing it. So once again, thank you very much for watching this, and I do hope you have a great day and that this video helped you.
their aid.